Welcome to Flip It Furniture. In today's video, we're going to flip this 9-drawer French Provincial dresser. It's made of all wood. It's already been painted in chalk paint, so there's no need to remove the chalk paint. We're just going to smooth it down and then paint over it. And for this video, we're going to really focus on repairs and prep work. So let's flip it. I start this makeover by sanding the top. I have a video on how I sand the tabletop, so you can check that out if you want to. Now I'm taking my mouse sander and I'm just sanding a little bit of the details where there's chips and things like that. I'm not going to take the chalk paint all the way off, I just want to make sure it's smooth. Now I use my mouse sander and I go through each and every drawer, just making sure that the finish is smooth. We're not going to remove the chalk paint all the way, there's just no need to. I just want to do some repairs and I want to make sure that our surface is smooth when we put on our chalk paint. As I go through each drawer, I notice that they need a little bit of repairs. Here I have my wood glue and I'm just going to take this little piece that's popping out and we're going to reinforce it. I use my wood glue and my clamp. Make sure the area is nice and clean. Over here, as you can see, the wood is a little bit warped, so we're going to use our Dixie Belle's mud and I'm going to use that to reinforce the wood. I just put a little bit over the top and when it dries, it'll dry hard, just like wood. And you can use wood filler if you want. Elmer's wood filler is really great too. I'm just using what I have on hand. I also want to make sure that I cover my holes because I don't have the existing hardware. I had to order some new ones, so I'm going to have to drill some new holes. So at this point, I've gone through each and every drawer. I've smoothed it down, done all the repairs, so we should have a really nice surface when we go to paint. Now I use my sanding pad just to get rid of the excess Dixie Belle mud. In this video, I really wanted to stress the prep work because I did a ton of prep work. It was probably 2 full days of just prep work, and you have to do a lot, especially when you're using white. And you can take a dresser that you might think is garbage and actually put a little bit of time into it. Your results can be amazing. You can completely restore old furniture. Now here, I'm going over the entire piece with Zinsser's shellac. I don't want any bleed through or any tannins to come through, so this is going to be my primer. If you don't know what a tannin or bleed through is, I did a video last week and touched base on it. So you can check that out too if you would like. I feel it's one of the most important parts of painting furniture, especially white. Now I bring the dresser in the house and I have this Dixie Belle Boss in clear, which is just another primer that helps with bleed through. Since it's in clear, I want to add a little bit of cotton, which is another white color. I'm doing this for the extra added protection for the tannins, but I'm also doing it because this was previously painted in a blue chalk paint and I want to cover that as much as I can before I put my base coat on, which is also white. So any extra help we can get is always a good thing. Now I'm using my Zinsser's bin primer, and that's just to be super extra because, you know, whenever you have those details on the edges, those lines, yellowing can come through, and I just don't want that to happen, so we're going to be super extra and make sure it doesn't. Now we're going to use our first coat of real paint, and we're going to use Dixie Belle's Fluff, which is a white. It's a beautiful white. And I'm going to use my water mister so it'll go on nice and smooth. And I have to say, look at that. Look at the finish. Look how it goes on. This is one coat, and I was so impressed with it and that's because of all of our prep work. So if you really put in the time and do the prep work right, your paint will go on smooth. You'll have awesome coverage. I mean, it looks like a totally different drawer than when we started. That's just one coat. I did apply a total of 2 coats of fluff, waiting for it to dry in between my coats. Now we're going to use LiQWYD to repair the side of the dresser. You're going to take it out of your container, you're going to measure how much you need and just cut a piece off, and then you're going to knead it. It's a medium brown color, and you're just going to kind of knead it in your hands until it turns a light color. And I always wear my gloves when I'm using this. Now, I've used this before and it says it's supposed to stick to your project, but that has never ever been the case for me. So I always use some extra products when I'm using this, but it makes a great base. It hardens. So I guess it's an epoxy, but it hardens to where it actually feels like wood. And you only have, it says 15 minutes of time before it starts to harden, but for me, it's always like 8 minutes or 5 minutes and it starts to harden. So I already know that I'm gonna have to sand it. That's why it doesn't look like perfect or anything, because I'm gonna have to sand it down nice and smooth. You know, it doesn't stick for me ever, so I always use my blue tape. So here it's about 2 hours later. I remove my blue tape and I just want to see what I have going on. It has hardened, but of course it doesn't stick for me. So I had my wood glue ready and my Dixie Belle mud, and I just take my glue, I wood glue it, I leave it there for about another hour. I clamp it just to make sure it's gonna stay on, and I even blue tape it because I know exactly, but it's in the form right now, so I know it's gonna be fine. I just realized that I didn't record myself sanding this smooth, but I just took my mouse sander when I was completely done with the repair, and I just sanded it as smooth as I could. Okay, so now we have it stuck. It's glued on, and now I'm just gonna put my Dixie Belle mud on, which kind of reinforces it. It's just almost like another glue, another covering, and it'll give me that another smooth finish on it. So I leave it here. Actually, I left it overnight. And I wasn't like careful on the shape or anything because I know I'm gonna have to take my sander and sand it smooth. So while I wait for that, I start to do my drawers, and I need to add, I think it's 2.5 inch holes, and I think it's already 3 that's on there. So I covered my holes with my Dixie Belle mud earlier, and now I'm just measuring out, because the worst thing you can do is drill a hole into your dresser, and then, you know, it's the wrong measurement, and then you have to fill it and then drill it again, and oh, what a process. So I like to use my measuring tape and just have it accurate the first time. Here I'm adding a transfer. It's called Rose Celebration by Redesign with Prima, and I just love this one. I love it on white. I think it's gorgeous. The problem is I bought this from Amazon. It's the second transfer I bought on Amazon that did not stick to the backing, and after some research, I believe it's because when it's in their warehouse, the temperatures vary, and they sit for a long time. I highly recommend getting it from a retailer. I usually get mine from Etsy. This is the last time I'm gonna go through this because it's a real pain in the butt. not having it stick to the back and then worrying that it's gonna bubble up, you know, someday. I think it'll be fine because I really made sure I cut them into small pieces and I really took my time with it. So I think it's gonna be fine. But what would have taken me maybe an hour took me 4 or 5 hours. So I'm definitely gonna buy from my Etsy retailers. They're always fresh, they always stick to the back, they're in great condition, so I'm gonna stick with that. And I'm giving you that tip from me. That's just my personal experience. Maybe yours is different. So, you know, take it for what it is. I wanted to do a video from this on, you know, how to put on a transfer, but I just couldn't because this transfer was in such bad shape. So I will do an extensive video on how to put on a transfer pretty soon, maybe with my next transfer project. But the basics for putting on a transfer is you just take it off the backer paper and use your stick to just rub it on. You go back and forth. It should stick, and then you make sure that there's no air underneath or bubbles or creases, and you can do that with a really soft sanding sponge. I like to do it that way. Or you can do it with the backer paper. You can actually go back over it once you've pulled it off. And here's how I go over it with the backing paper. I just kind of take it and make sure that it's on really well. And then after you know that there's no air bubbles or anything, you're gonna wanna seal it with a sealer. And I would just use a regular water-based sealer. Don't use a triple thick or gator hide or anything like that. So after days of deciding what I wanted to do with the top, I thought I was gonna leave it with this. I was gonna put like a natural oak stain on it, but I ended up changing my mind. Instead, I just kind of felt like that was too orangey, so I used Dixie Belle's Boss as a primer. And now I'm gonna mix what I have left of my sawmill gravy, and I wanna put a little bit of mud puddle in there to match my transfer, because there's some swirls on the transfer, and I thought, well, I could add a little bit of brown and it would be like a grayish or a taupe. So that's what I do. And then I take that color that I made for the top and I bring it down to the legs, and I just dry brush over the details. When I dry brush, I just feather it on really light. I barely touch it because I don't want it to paint and be all over the legs. I just want it to be on those details that are popping out. I seal the entire piece in Varathane's polyurethane in satin. It's a water-based. I gave 2 coats on the body and then 3 coats on the top. And the last thing to do is add my hardware, and I am all set. And here's how it ended up looking. This video for me was all about the prep work and how important it is. So a lot of it was prep work, because prep work is almost the most important part of doing furniture. I just wanted to stress that. I'm really happy about my choice for the top because I think it looks timeless, and I think an adult or a child could have this dresser. And check out that repair. There's a little, it looks like a little dent, but it's nothing really noticeable. So I think I was really happy with that. If you guys enjoyed this makeover, please hit the like and subscribe button, and I will see you next week.